The strongest and only Esper, doing nothing but training my psychokinesis. Part 2. The next day, I was hit with pain from using my psychokinesis. Obviously, if you use your muscles, you get muscle pain, and if you use your head, you get a headset. But that being said, I wasn't expecting to end up with psychokinetic pain. Even if you ask me, I can't really describe what kind of pain it is. If I had to put it in words, the best I can come up with is hooray, I think. If I were to express it in Tuniview terms, it was like my inner soul broke through its shelf and it caused chaos to overflow and rage through my body. Well, since I overdid it yesterday, even just gathering the focus needed to use my psychokinesis was painful. So I decided it was impossible to use it at all today and just rest. After school, I went to Mac with a friend, but there was no clerk suddenly breathing fire. I wasn't wearing black clothes or surrounded by beautiful girls. It was peaceful, with the only surprising thing being my friend spilling some soda on my uniform. I should have made him pay the dry cleaning fee, since it was his fault my uniform ended up being sticky. The next day, I stopped checking the news sites. There was no change. I even checked the newspaper for the past 2 days, but there was still nothing. Since the pain was getting much better, I decided to practice my psychokinesis. When I did, understandably, there was no change in the operative range, but the output had changed. My limit was now 4 grams. I could feel that the tele muscle had increased. 4 grams! Woo! 1 gram. It decreased by 1 gram. But it's still 4 grams. I still can move a pencil. Fuck it. No, wait. When you consider the time it takes to recover from psychokinesis pain, you could say it takes 2 days in total for output to increase by 1 gram. So, in a year, my output will approximately be 182. In a year, I still won't be able to move a full 500 milliliter water bottle. If you train constantly every day, when you're an old man, you may be able to lift a cat. Ah, damn it. Isn't that stupid? With or without a muscle training, you can still throw around a cat. You can play cats using a cat instead of a ball. Although people without powers may view them as a luxury that solves all your problems, the time spent training them will probably be better spent learning some English, even if after some twists and turns supernatural powers were recognized and used for everything. Well, it will be exciting for a while, eventually things will cool down, and it will be back to normal. It's absolutely better to study hard at university, enter a good company, and have a stable life. Even though I say that, I decided to continue training my psychokinesis, since it didn't take up much time or effort. I don't understand it. It's completely different from the superpowers I imagined when I was small. No monsters come out, aliens from space don't appear, there's no contact from an agent from a secret organization, and there's no door to another world to open. Even if a monster does come, it's more effective to hit it with a base or a bat than trying to fight it with 4 grams of psychokinesis power. Having superpowers is pointless. I realized something. I didn't want superpowers. I wanted superpowers to cause me to get caught in extraordinary happenings. In addition, I didn't want this extraordinary life to be dangerous. So, I wanted a strong power that would let me safely enjoy it. For example, a good ability would be one that can be easily weaponized, but with 4 grams of power in a straight line, the only way I can think of to weaponize it would be to throw thumbtacks one by one, but it would be faster to just sprinkle them with your hands. Ah, it really kills the tension. 10 days later, I was used to my abnormal situation of being able to use psychokinesis. The human ability to adapt is scary. If you think about it, if you handed a person from the Heian era a laptop, like me, they would be confused for a while, but then eventually they would adapt. Although they would probably claim that it's the product of witchcraft. Maybe similarly, what physics can explain right now will become common to mankind in 1,000 years. There are no health problems. On the fourth day, I fell down on purpose and complained of headaches so I could get checked out at the hospital. But the only conclusion from the exams was that I was healthy. My experimental notes on my psychokinesis entered the third page, and I started to accumulate detailed data. First, I thought that my psychokinesis powers improved by 1 gram every 2 days. but it seems I jumped the gun a bit. The increase pattern was 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11. It seemed to be increasing by 1.3 times. It's easier to grow than a muscle. Using a calculator, in 1 month it should be 118 grams, and after 1 year it should be 746 trillion 416 billion 648,580,237 ton. That's a geometric series for you. It will make even fiction heroes to go blue in the face. However, I shouldn't expect too much since I don't know where the upper limit is. I may suddenly hit my growth limit at 100 grams. As suddenly as I got my psychokinesis, I may also just as suddenly lose it. Only solids can be moved. I'm unable to move air because it's impossible to see it, and therefore it's impossible for me to grab it. Liquids are difficult to grasp, even if you use psychokinesis. Just raising up 11 grams of water causes it to fall and splash everywhere. It seems like it's moving because of the splashing, but it feels like I'm trying to draw water with a ballpoint pen. Naturally, it's impossible to move fire or bend light. There wasn't even a single sign of success when I attempted. Regardless of exams or school field trips, I continued to train my psychokinesis in the evening. And it was around 2 months after discovering my powers that I became able to lift around 8 kilograms. The output of my psychokinesis was clearly nothing to be ashamed. I could easily lift ordinary handheld objects. Curiosity caused me during class to drop my eraser and use my power to pick it up, but I wasn't caught. I don't know if someone saw me, or if they did, just thought they were mistaken. This caused me to get a bit full of myself. So I decided to use my psychokinesis to do a magic trick with cards for my friend. He was suitably impressed, which made me feel great. But afterwards, he kept nagging at me to tell him how I did it, and I struggled to come up with a decent reply. Finally, I gave in and told him I was using psychokinesis. But since I had told him it was a magic trick, he didn't believe me and just thought I was being a jerk. Then I tried to convince him by giving him a proper display of my psychokinesis, but he just thought that that was a magic trick as well. He was being so tight-headed. The more I tried to prove it, the more obsessed he became with trying to get the secret of the magic trick out of me, until I eventually just soldered out something random then ran away. When I was asked to show it again the next day, I got out of it by saying that my mom had thrown my trick cards in the trash. I then swore to myself to never use my psychokinesis in public again. Let's just keep it my own personal hobby. Showing it to others is tiring. I debated about what things I should try to move with my psychokinesis in order to increase its output. I tried moving the rice cooker, the bookshelf, the refrigerator, and even a passenger car. 4 months after moving a bus at a bus stop near my house, I at last hit my limit. I noticed it. In this world, there are not any unattached heavy objects. I'm not sure, but I think a bus is weighed around 6 to 8 tons. A house is probably even heavier, and a skyscraper is probably even heavier than that. But I can move things that are fixed in the ground. Although I have thought about moving a train, using psychokinesis on a train could cause a catastrophe. Plus, it will be difficult to hide it in the garage. Since it can be helped, I decided to stop training to increase my output and start training in things like endurance, precision, and appliance. A 7-ton output should be plenty sufficient. The first thing I trained was the vectors of my psychokinesis. I wanted to be able to move things in all directions up, down, left, right, etc. Originally, there were slightly signs of horizontal movement being likely, so it should go well. I tried and it went well. I was able to demonstrate 2 or 3 kilograms of power in all directions, but by using my telehi muscle in a different way, my headshot was the worst it had been in a long time. Thanks to having a solid foundation, my vector domination proceeded more smoothly than I expected, and in 3 months I was able to use 7 tons of power in all directions. However, the price was a cold sweat upon learning about a rumor of a spinning bus being seen in the middle of the night. I had been seen. Let's no longer move buses. When I conquered all the vectors, I was finishing my 3rd year of high school and about to move on to university. I chose my future course in university to be engineering in a school on the lower part of national ranking, as this corresponded with my academic achievement level. and choosing this file of study will make it unlikely that I will ever be unemployed. I will be better to aim for physics in order to research my psychokinesis, but I'm not smart enough for that. I may be slightly better than average, but I don't have enough brain to do something innovative. I studied for my entrance exams for a while further training my psychokinesis. It's pretty much a hobby at this point. Recently, I've been using my training to help me relax from studying. The next part of my vector conquest will be not to move, but to stop. So far, I had been using my power in push and pull movements, but I should be able to use it with no motion as well, such as making things float in the air or preventing balls from rolling down a slope. Stopping psychokinesis, I guess you could call it. It's hard. Up to now, my psychokinesis training was like lifting dumbbells. This was more like the incredibly difficult invisible chair exercise. At the beginning it's fine, but as time goes on, I got distracted, which caused the power to decrease, and eventually it starts to tremble, and I can't hold it in position anymore. But if I train this, I'll get big pink psychic muscle. But if I train this, I'll get pink psychic muscles that combine instantaneous power and endurance. Even if this technique is nothing particularly special, like any other man, I like seeing myself gain muscle. Muscle equals social status. I lifted my desk while studying. As I was listening, I slowly lifted the chair I was sitting on. I solved previous exam questions while floating in my father's car. Despite splitting my attention between studying and psychic muscle training, both my grades and my psychic muscle increased. Well, I guess it's that. It's like how some people play sports to get into a studying mood. Some people can concentrate on studying while listening to music, while others have to listen to music in order to be able to study. It seems that my studying and my psychokinesis training fit together well. It was worth spending 12 hours a day during summer vacations seriously studying and doing psychic muscle training. Not only did I get an A on the exam for my first choice college, the power of my psychic muscle increased to the point where I could hold things in place for a long period of time without getting tired. But staying up all night was very painful. My parents and teacher recommended I take exam for a school ranked one place higher as well, but I refused this reasonable suggestion. Besides, the one rank higher school is near the ocean. Anyway, I wanted to enjoy the peace that came from having success finishing my college entrance exams. While my friends who had passed on studying during summer vacation began to do so with grim face, I continued on with my hobby. The next task was manipulating my psychokinesis in different forms. I was no longer using my psychokinesis to manipulate objects. Instead, I wanted to use my psychokinesis to manipulate the power itself. Because my endurance training during the summer also further developed other aspects of my psychokinesis, I was now able to more sensitively feel the power itself. Until now, I could only use my psychokinesis on physical objects, so it was difficult to manipulate both things that are invisible and things that don't have a distinct boundaries. But now I can manipulate the power itself. So if I, for example, form the psychokinesis into a ring, I can fan in air. And if I form it into a cup, I can draw water. Well, at least there's a likely chance. I guess I will describe it like this. My psychokinesis is now like a cursor, and I can click on items to select them. And like manipulating an image on the computer, I can now use my cursor to draw out and stretch my psychokinesis to a certain range. Of course, I can select objects while I am dragging. I use the muscle analogy every time, but it's like you're tightening a screw or hammering a nail. Instead of training, I was using my muscles to make something, which felt like more of a vague use of them. Even though my psychic muscle is plenty flexible, my psychological fatigue is severe. I'm exhausted after 1 hour. I abandoned it because at a certain point the force field got too distorted. I decided to start over from the very beginning tomorrow, but I feel like it's worth the effort. It took me a week to spread it to the size of a 500 yen coin, a month to reach the 1000 yen bill level. I gradually figured out how to spread the force field, and after 2 months I was able to stretch to the size of an 8 tatami mat floor in about 15 minutes. If I continue training this, it will continue to increase in size. From here, I decided to go into more instantaneous and complex manipulation training. It reached the point where it was possible to pull and stretch points and get it to form a plate. The range of my psychokinesis is the same as my field of view. It means I can freely use my psychokinesis within my line of sight. Actually, I can move two or three things at the same time with my psychokinesis. In other words, even if I don't bother to make a plate by stretching out from a single point, I should be able to create a powerful fight force that is in the state of a plate from the beginning. I was stretching it out from one point because it was easier, but I also remembered the feeling of the plate psychokinesis, so I should be able to apply it well and effectively. Thinking like that, I start training. On the first day, it took 2 hours to make a thin and brilliant plate like a tissue. After a week, it became like a paper, and I started to get the hang of it. In about 2 weeks, I was able to cover the area of a tennis court in a file as sturdy as a wooden plank in about 3 minutes. I was improving so quickly, I amazed myself. Thanks to the fact that I have carried out basic training on a daily schedule so far, I can see that the rate of skill improvement has been visible rising recently. I might be a genius. Are there overpowered experts that are self-trained? Is it beginning? Has my extraordinary life started? But any news on this has been non-existent. Even Ichiro and Jobs didn't suddenly one day achieve a great success. While proceeding through the success and failure, they became extraordinary people in the eyes of the general public. Thinking that way, it's natural that nothing extraordinary happens if you are passive. Because everything is fine, trying is necessary to cause any external action. If the proficiency level of my psychokinesis is raised high enough, a corresponding disturbance may happen. If I just want to be flashy without considering the consequence, I could go stand in front of a TV station in Tokyo and lift and swing heavy trucks in the street. If you do extraordinary big things in front of the public, it can be dismissed as a simple magic trick. But such disturbance is different from the non-ordinary life I'm seeking. Doing TV interviews, decorating one side of the newspaper, being criticized by self-proclaimed expert in gossip magazines. I don't want those things. I want something more like a battle between teams of experts, or a romance with a jumper or a psychometer. I don't want ordinary extraordinary. I want extraordinary circumstances and extraordinary conflicts. By the time test center exams were over, my psychokinesis board was fully formed. I can finish the formation in 10 seconds, and I can easily form plates, cups, and ellipses. Also, it's possible for me now to form boards into complex shapes, such as a stuffed toy or a bouquet. Yet, it's impossible to tightly cover something and cling to it. It feels like there's a lot of gaps and waste, but I think I'll be able to do it eventually. It will form a barrier rather than a plank. I pulled up the water with a barrier at the end of a vat, and while preventing the water from spilling, I further distorted the barrier. My mastery of my psychokinesis continues to steadily increase. I also try to fold the origami with it, and I try to use it to sculpt wood with a chisel. My goal is to be precise and powerful with my psychokinesis. Originally, the university gave me an A, which meant I was perfectly fine on the second exam. It was sunny when I became a college student. I was going to live alone, so I had to move. Once I finished, I had 3 free days until the university entrance ceremony. So, what to do with that time? Of course, training my psychokinesis. Should I start preparing for lectures? I don't know. I'm prepared to continue taking credits until I graduate. At night, while the good kids slept, I headed for the sea. It was a 10-minute walk, not a big distance. I descended to the sandy beach while lighting up the area around my feet with a flashlight, and as I listened to the sound of the waves, I gradually moved closer to the water's edge. Using psychokinesis, I lifted a large amount of seawater. Do you understand? Yes, I can lift water now. I lifted about 1 cubic meter of water, which weighs around 1 ton. Since the ocean is endless, there's no limit in weight. From now on, I can work on increasing the output of my psychic muscle from 7 tons. This is the reason I went to a university by the sea. Increase the output, increase the intensity. I don't have any particular goals, but I want to raise it as much as I can. I got caught up in the moment and spent all night playing in the ocean. So end up catching a cold and becoming dizzy, which led to me decide to not attend the entrance ceremony. No matter how great of an expert you are, you're still not immune to disease. It seems leaving alone got me too excited and resulted in something like a high. If you enjoyed this video, thank you very much.